So I bought myself a QuickJack. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I decided to go ahead and order one. Comes in 3 boxes, plus the other accessories I bought. They're a little bit on the heavy side. I think the total weight was somewhere around 40 pounds. The boxes do get beat up quite a bit in transit. It seems like this one here is missing half of the side straps. That one there, it's missing one too. The boxes are damaged in a couple of places, but it looks like they're intact. They're just heavy, and the shipper, which in this case was FedEx, didn't handle the boxes real well. He didn't even use a hand cart to drag them out of the truck. He just grabbed one in and drug it off and let it hit the ground, because I was in the house when it happened. So I didn't notice any damage to the outside of the box, but still kind of a crappy way to ship something. So I'm going to go ahead and open this all up, set out the parts, and then set it up so I can do the bleeding and get fluid in it. All right. After a little bit of work, got them out of the box. The end where the little picture of the car with the red line through it, that's the end with wheels on it. This end has a little space where you can actually kind of grab in there. It helps you pick it up, so that's kind of cool. So I've got things kind of divided out here. Set of blocks and hoses for one side, set of blocks and hoses for the other side, and the pump. So basically at this point, just need to take the hydraulic fittings out of the little cardboard box over there, connect the long lines. There's a set of short lines and a set of long lines for both sides. The short lines actually get connected to the QuickJack. Right here, there's a side valve, so it goes in there. Same thing on that one. And then the long hoses are what connect lifts to the pump. So need to get some thread tape. They supply this liquid thread tape. I'm going to go ahead and use the white stuff I'm just a little bit more comfortable with. But everything is here. It's a fairly simple, straightforward thing. So next thing I have to do is put the hoses together, bring out a compressor line, because I need to put air into the system so that it can be bled, and we'll get the hydraulic fluid into the tank. So back in a second once I find the right tools and fittings. All right, so on your long hoses, you're going to have 2 of these on each side. So there will be a total of 4. There's 3 more of them. They are the large hydraulic fittings, the quick connect fittings. So these will go on your 2 long lines, and the 2 short lines, one end with the nut on it gets screwed into the pump or the ram on the lift, and the other end gets one of these females. Now these other 2 that are threaded out go into the pump in these 2 red spots. So next thing I will be doing is finishing them all off, getting the thread tape on, getting them snugged down. You don't need to go super apeshit crazy with that. Just get them snugged down tight. You can always check them for leaks later. So, all right, so that's my next goal. Get all the hoses set up, and then I will start on the pumps. Okay, for wrenches, for these 4, you're going to need a 22. For the 4 large ones that go on the long hoses, you're going to need a 22. And for the smaller ones, you're going to need a 17. So that will handle all of your hoses, a 17 and a 22. I suggest getting 2 17s, because at one point you're actually going to need them. Okay, so the 90 degree that goes on the hydraulic ram is not metric, but standard. So you'll need a 11/16 and a 9/16 to mount that. And then you'll still need the 17 to screw the short hose onto the end of that. So this part here with the nut and the O-ring go into the pump, or into the ram, and the other side goes into the short hose. Okay, so the plug in the end of the ram, it's an Allen, and it was a 6 mil. And then when you put this joint in, you want to point it up. They want you to point it up. That way, when it bleeds, the air goes out of the system and not in. And so now I can tighten down the 11/16 and squash that O-ring in there. So I'm going to finish tightening this up, and then I'll do the other one. All right, so our line's hooked up. It's just below the top of the rail, but with a slight angle. And I fished it under the rail so that I can connect it to the pump in a minute. So the two lift jacks, QuickJacks, their hoses are all done, tightened up, everything's ready to go. So the next thing, I got to finish plumbing the two ends here on the pump. It is suggested that you do the bottom fitting first because it'll make life a lot easier to tighten it down. Once you get those two, I've already started, got the one on. Once you get those done, fill the tank, get that set aside, and then we're going to put some air in here. I brought my air line out, so I'll be doing that in a second. All right, so the next thing we have to do is do an air check. So we're going to move the supplied cap with the Schrader valve. If you're really strong, you might be able to get your fingers in there to turn that, but what you want to do is you want to, before you do anything else, you want to reach in here and crack this just a little bit. See if we can hear it. I didn't really hear any air that time, so we'll go ahead and tighten it back up. I'll check it so there's no air in it. Now, of course, I use one of these guys, and so I need both hands to do it. So be right back. I'm going to put a couple short squirts in, and then I'll check the air to make sure I don't go above 50, and I'll just keep airing it up until I hit 50. All right, let's see if I can do this one-handed. All right, so we are just at 49. Might be hard to see. All right. Okay, so you're gonna put your cap back on. Make sure that you don't have any. If you're worried about leaks and you can't hear them, making a solution of soapy water and a squirt bottle so you can check all your fittings would be something you can do. But at this point, I'm okay. So next thing I have to do is fill the pump and then connect the lines, and there's a bleeder on top too. So next thing we're going to do is fill the pump. All right, so next step is filling the tank. So you have two choices: hydraulic fluid transmission or automatic transmission fluid. I went with automatic transmission fluid, and you're supposed to fill this tank to about half an inch from the fill, but there is a little indentation line here along the tank. It's part of the design, but that's roughly a half inch. So if you just fill it to that location, you're good. I've already hooked up my two lines to the QuickJacks, but that's the next step. Will be once we get the tank filled, then there's a procedure of raising, lowering, raising. So we'll be working that next. So let me get this tank filled. All right, so I've already raised it once. It took a second for the fluid to build up, but now we're going to go ahead and hit it again. Roughly about 8 inches, and we'll go ahead and hit the down, and we will drop it. You can hear the air bleeding out of the vent right there. All right, we're gonna go back up one more time. It's completely down. All right, down. Still hear air bleeding out of that. And until they're fully bled, one may be faster than the other, at least that's what they say. All right, so I'm gonna raise it one last time, and then I'm gonna go and get in and move position so I can do the bleeding. So, all right, back in a second. All right, so after you've raised and lowered 3 times or so, you've moved air to this valve. You're going to need a 3/16 and a rag, and what you're going to want to do is crack this open until you hear the air bleed out of it. Once you hear all the air bleed out, you're going to close the valve. You're going to raise it a little bit, lower it back down, double check it, and then when you've got all the air out, you'll move on to the second one. Okay, so I have bled both sides now. Feels like I've got all of the air, or at least 99.9% of the air out of the system. I'm just going to clean up some of this transmission fluid that leaks out of this valve. So when you bleed this valve, it's going to leak. But when you get done, let's see if this comes in. They should more or less go up at the same time now, and they go down at the same time. All right, so that shows that they're bled. So next step will be to get the Porsche off of the ramps and get the QuickJacks under the Porsche. All right, so that's the complete setup of this. So, yep, the end of this video will be me getting this up in the air. Hopefully I'll get it done here in a few minutes, but I started a barbecue a few minutes ago, so I might be eating dinner. So when I come back, we'll be putting the Porsche up in the air. Okay, Porsche is off of the ramps. I have the tire chalked right here. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect everything because I got it sitting over here on the ground so that I can drag it and put it underneath the car and get it up in the air. All right, so that's my next step. All right, just like that, it's up in the air. But in my race to get the car up so I could go eat my barbecue, I put the jacks on the wrong side. The locks are on the inside instead of the outside where you can reach them. But for right now, this is my first test lift. I'm gonna drop it anyway and reset it. But I just wanted to make sure that the lifts were going up and down equally. They are, and no leaks. So I'm gonna call this quits for now, go eat, and then come back and reset it. But talk about space. That is way better